We've been surveying our readers all year. These are engaged investors, people who are very active with their own accounts and they know what they're doing. And all year long, they've been very bullish. Going into December, they were very bullish after the elections, but the last week has scared them back a little bit. And now their number one concern, Frank, is the state of the nation and civil unrest. It used to be COVID, it used to be the elections, but now that all that's passed and we saw what happened in Capitol Hill last week, it's the state of the nation. And 60% of our readers, this is about 1.5 million readers that we surveyed, are very concerned about that going forward. That said, most are kind of in a Goldilocks form when it comes to their portfolios. They expect more gains in 2021, but we have more respondents now expecting some losses, some steep losses because of the political uncertainty. So this is generally a very bullish crowd, but they become a little bit scared and pulling back a little bit in just the last few weeks since we've seen how things have played out in Washington, D.C. And what they're worried about going forward, again, is that civil unrest and what that's going to mean to markets and then policy uncertainty as well, plus COVID.
Caleb, I like the way you're taking the bull by the horns on this one. So we were just showing your survey results right there. Like you said, almost 60% of your readers finding the state of the nation their top concern. What do you think is causing all this? We've talked a lot about the bifurcation of the market, the divide between Main Street and Wall Street, and the market's not really responding to all the turmoil we're seeing in the country. Why all of a sudden do you think your readers see this as a concern?
I think it's because we've seen things we haven't seen before. You just said it to Bertha. This is truly historic times, and we've seen things unfold on television and at the nation's capital that we couldn't predict. But also, even though they saw that blue wave coming with the elections in Georgia, right after that is when we began surveying them, they're now concerned a little bit about the rise in taxes. I think everyone that we've surveyed pretty much believes there will be some rise in income taxes and corporate taxes going forward, and political uncertainty in terms of the size of the next stimulus. Is there going to be a bigger stimulus bill passed, and what's that going to mean for the landscape? But they've also been sitting on 40% gains for some of them for last year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you,
we had very solid gains as well.
Yeah, stimulus is definitely a factor, especially with President-elect Biden saying the stimulus could be in the trillions. So obviously that's spurring a lot of thought when it comes to investments. Like as we mentioned, historic times, a lot of turmoil. And generally, that may change the way people balance their portfolio. And this year, we've seen some of that. We've seen commodities red hot, real estate's red hot, a lot of interest in cannabis. Where do stocks rank as a preferred investment right now?
Well, our investors love that home cooking and they love stocks. So they still think large cap U.S. stocks is where that action is going to be. They're very favorable towards the big caps that were represented so much of the gains in 2020, and a lot of them are sticking with those. We actually surveyed them on what their favorite asset class would be going forward, and it is U.S. equities, followed by international equities, especially those emerging markets, and then, of course, Bitcoin. But the favoritism towards equities is strong. This is a stocks crowd. They love their stocks, and a lot of them are older folks who have been in the market for quite a while, very loyal to the dividend-paying blue chips that sort of brought them their returns over the last decade or so.
You know, Kev, it's really interesting that you say your readers are mostly older people. I saw right there, U.S. Treasuries only 1% saying that's their preferred investments. And generally, older investors like that security of fixed income investments. And also a lot more people who are younger are kind of jumping into the market for the very first time as retail investors. Cannabis is the other thing that sticks out here. Can you talk about bonds and cannabis? Why the more interest in cannabis of all things over bonds?
Right. Well, cannabis is a growing market, and obviously with the Biden administration coming in, talking about decriminalization, several more states opening up for legalization, they like the prospects for that. You could see the action in the markets over the past several weeks with cannabis stocks and cannabis ETFs. And to be clear, our readers are old and young, but we have a very strong proponent, especially in the newsletter readers who are older folks who have been in the market for 20 or more years, and they've seen different cycles. So cannabis, they believe, is going to be obviously a growing market. They've seen what happened to the stock prices in the sector last year, and they believe there's going to be some upside because of the decriminalization and possible legalization, but that still remains to be seen. In terms of bonds, they know where interest rates are going to be for the next 3 years. The rest of us do too. They are rising to a certain extent, but the gains and the yield has been in stocks.
All right, Caleb, before we let you go, because we are running out of time, let's talk sectors. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Healthcare is obviously a crucial part of our economy globally. What other sectors are your readers interested in and think that have the biggest upside for 2021?
Yeah, large cap tech. Like I said, they love that. That was the horse they rode in on, and they're very faithful to that. We asked them for any stock, one stock that they could hold on to for the rest of 2021. If they could just have one, the number one, Frank, Tesla. Number 2 and 3, Amazon and Apple. So these are loyalists that like the big caps.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC. on YouTube.